What's going on, Nets fans? So this is the season preview for the 2019-2020 Brooklyn Nets season. Of course, a mammoth offseason for the Nets after acquiring Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Taurean Prince, DeAndre Jordan, guys like Garrett Temple, David Nwaba, and Wilson Chandler. I don't know who I'm forgetting. Nicholas Claxton from the draft. Very exciting team this year. A lot different from last year. It's very weird not having D'Angelo Russell on this team and seeing him in Warriors gold. But still, I think the Nets have a better roster this year, and it had to be done. So it is what it is. So we'll go over each player, how I think they'll attribute to this team, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll go by position groups and have a record prediction at the end of the video. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into it. So we start at the point guard position with Kyrie Irving, of course, probably our best player on the team until Kevin Durant comes back. He's already 27 years old. He's been in the league for 8 years, which is crazy to believe. I was actually at the draft when he got drafted, so that makes me feel old. He's filling in for D'Angelo Russell, obviously, and I think he is an upgrade over D'Angelo Russell. I mean, Russell's a nice player to have and all that kind of stuff, but when you're talking about Kyrie Irving, you're talking about a superstar-type player. He just needs to stay on the court. That's the one issue he has. Out of 82 games, he played 67 last year and 60 the year before that. Does have some knee issues, which is always, the problem with him, but when he's out there, terrific player, had a rough playoffs last year, and Boston fans love to get on the guy because a lot of Celtics fans feel he's the reason that the team was not great last year, but I don't know. I don't believe in that crap, honestly. I think Kyrie Irving will be fine. They talk about leadership issues and how he didn't get along with some people on that team and how he brought them down. I don't think that's the case. I mean, Kyrie Irving seems happy. He wanted to be here. He grew up in New Jersey, and now he's, where he wants to be with his friend Kevin Durant. So I think he'll be fine this year. The only thing is health, and that's really about it. I mean, I'm excited for him because Kenny Atkinson has a great history with point guards. I mean, we know he developed D'Angelo Russell, Jeremy Lin, I'm trying to think who else, Dennis Schroeder, Jeff Teague in Atlanta. So, I mean, there's a bunch of guys at point guard that he's, brought guys to that next level, and he can make Kyrie Irving even a better player possibly. Still 27 years old, so he's got a lot of room left to possibly improve. The one thing, I hope his three-point percentage keeps up. He's shooting at 40% the last 3 years. That's great. Hopefully his assist numbers go up because, there's a lot of good shooters on this team and stuff like that. He could throw lobs at DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen. So a lot of opportunities for Kyrie Irving to be a superstar once again this year. It all depends on health for him, but I think he'll have a nice year as long as he's on the court. Next is his backup, Spencer Dinwiddie, a great find by our terrific GM, Sean Marks, 3 years ago, I think it was actually, when they brought him over from, Chicago's D-League time at the time it was, not G-League yet. He'll be 26 years old this year. He just signed a 3-year, $34 million contract, so they got him for a good price based off his production. He's a guy who keeps getting better every year. If you look at his stats, his points per game keeps going up, field goal percentage is going up, three-point percentage went up 1% last year. Just looks like a better player. You tell. He's, there's times where Spencer Dinwiddie does annoy me. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I feel like he's a little over-aggressive and just tries to go for fouls rather than actually finish the play, and sometimes relies on the refs too much. But when you're talking about a backup point guard, he's got to be one of the best ones in the league. So I think there's another, step for him to take and possibly improve this year, and there's going to be a lot of pressure off of him. Having a guy like Kyrie Irving in front of you and having a backcourt with Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, all those type of guys, even Zana Musa is looking like in the preseason he might be a good player for us this year. So, Spencer Dinwiddie's just going to be doing his own thing. He'll get his 20 to 25 minutes per night, and I'm sure he'll play well as he always does. I'm not sure how many minutes he'll receive. I did just throw out 20 to 25, but, with Kyrie Irving, it really depends, I think, on how good the Nets are. If the Nets are in a position where they have a really good record and it seems like they have a top 4 seed locked up at some point just to clinch home court, they might start playing Spencer Dinwiddie more in the second half of the season to try and preserve Kyrie Irving because you don't want him to get injured. So I think at the beginning of the year, it might be, obviously more Kyrie, but I think as the season goes on, if the Nets have a good start and they look like they're in the lock for a top 4 seed, you might see more Spencer Dinwiddie in the second half, but we'll see. It's just a thought. I don't know how they're going to go about it, but I'm assuming they want Kyrie Irving healthy for the playoffs. So I'm excited for Dinwiddie, though. I think he does have another step to take. We'll see if he does it, and he's on a good contract as well, so just a great job by Sean Marks, and hopefully he keeps improving this year. Next is another guy onto a new contract. I think it starts next year, actually. Caris LeVert, who signed for 3 years, $52 million. I like that contract as well. Nice job, Sean Marks, once again. He'll be 25 years old this year. I believe it's his 4th year. So, I mean, look, I think he has room for another jump. I think he has the potential to be an even better player. Him and Kevin Durant have a great relationship, and I believe that's part of the reason Kevin Durant came to Brooklyn. I mean, those guys, even when Durant was on the Warriors, they had a relationship for some reason. I don't know why, but they did. Obviously, Caris LeVert in the beginning of last year, the first 20 games or so, looked like the potential most improved player of the year. And of course, D'Angelo Russell almost won that award later in the season, which is funny. But at the time, Caris LeVert looked like that guy, and he was having a great season for the Nets. Unfortunately, had that very gruesome injury against the Timberwolves, and I guess it was November. And then he comes back at some point in the season, probably played like the last 25-ish games of the season. Didn't really look himself at the end of the regular season, and I get it. I completely understand. I mean, the guy's ankle was turned the wrong way, so I completely understand. Not blaming the guy. But during the playoffs, he looked a lot better against the Sixers. I mean, there's points where the Nets offense looked terrible, and Caris LeVert was carrying them at one point. I believe in Game 2 it was at one point. Caris LeVert scored like 16 straight points or something like that. There's times where he just goes off, and I'm not sold on him as a shooter yet. I think his three-point percentage, I mean, it needs to get better. I don't completely trust him with open shots and stuff like that, but in terms of like creating plays and setting up teammates and stuff like that, and just, you know, having the athleticism, he's really good, and he definitely has a high ceiling as a defender as well. I feel like he hasn't reached his full potential yet. He's athletic enough to do that. He's 6'6", so still young. I mean, I'm very excited for him. The thing about him, same thing with Kyrie Irving, it's just about health. I feel like if he stays on the court, and I'm telling you, if we get a full season of Kyrie and Caris LeVert, the Nets are going to have a great season. I'm feeling like 50-plus wins, but a lot of it depends on those guys' health. I mean, we could be in a situation where Caris LeVert can miss, 40-plus games, or if something bad happens with his foot, because he has a lot of foot injuries and even his ankle last year. And then, let's say Kyrie Irving's knee flares up, he might miss a lot of games as well. So a lot of it depends on those guys' health. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm optimistic. I mean, right now they're healthy, so that's the way I'm going about it. I mean, Kyrie does have like the face fracture, but that should be fine. So, look, I'm excited for for Caris, even Kyrie. I should say I'm excited for Kyrie too, but the thing about Caris is I want the shooting to improve, and I want, his health to be there. Obviously, he can't control his health, but, if he's on the court for 70-plus games this year, that would be fantastic. And, he was limited to 40 games last year, but the year before that played in 71. So, I mean, I think he has that potential to play in a lot of games. I just hope that health's on his side, and hopefully he improves as a shooter as well. So right now it seems as if that Garrett Temple is the backup to Caris LeVert. It could be Zanan Musa, but I'll get into him later. Right now I'm doing like the first two guys for each position. So right now it's Garrett Temple. He's 33 years old, entering his 10th season in the NBA, a former undrafted free agent. Really, his job is simple. Just make threes and play defense. So, they call it 3-and-D. It's really his job for this team. I mean, that's what he's been. Last year had a good stint with the Grizzlies, but then went to the Clippers and wasn't shooting as well. His minutes weren't up to what they were. I mean, he was averaging 31 minutes on the Grizzlies in the first half of the year, and then went down to 19 minutes on the Clippers. So I don't know if the playing time had to impact that, but there's no way, unless, there's injuries in the backcourt, that he's going to get 31 minutes per year. So he better get used to the 20 minutes per game. I'm not even sure if he'll get 20 minutes per game. I'm sure he will to start the year, but if Musa or someone else behind him starts playing better, then, he might be on the bench for a while. I don't know, but I don't have high expectations for Garrett Temple. I don't think you can. I don't expect the guy to come out here and score 20 points per game, but, as I said, if he can just play defense and play at a slightly above average level on the defensive end and make his shots, there's room for him on this team. I mean, every NBA team needs a 3-and-D guy, especially for how, teams play with the analytics and stuff like that, just hoisting up three-pointers. If he's shooting well from downtown, and, he did it the first half of the season, in 2017 shot 39% from three, first half of last year shot 35%, but then when he went to the Clippers, when all of his numbers went down, it was down to 29%. So hopefully he's okay shooting the ball this year. He's looked good in the preseason games that I've watched. So look, I mean, I don't have high hopes for the guy, but I think he'll be fine. So we'll see what he does this year. We'll see how much Musa develops and maybe, takes that second spot away from him at shooting guard. But it will be Garrett Temple's job to start the year, so he's just got to hold off Musa. Up next, and he is technically our starting small forward this year, another great find by Sean Marks after being released by, I think, Orlando a few seasons ago. It's Joe Harris, who led the NBA in three-point percentage, the entire NBA, more than Steph Curry, more than the other Curry. He beat out, who else was it? Some random guy, I forget his name, but still, led the league in three-point percentage last year, which is incredible. Won the three-point shootout as well. He was a terrific player for us the last 2 years, Joe Harris. He's another guy who keeps improving every year. He's durable. He's always been out there every time we needed him. He's one of the better finishers at the rim as well. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit for the way he finishes. I mean, I couldn't get the percentage. I couldn't find it online. But when you watch the games, and the Yes Network broadcast says it a lot, he's one of the better finishers percentage-wise in terms of layups and stuff like that. So definitely, he's not just a shooter. He's the type of guy that can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim very easily. You won't see him dunk too many times, maybe a handful of times per season, but he's very consistent with making layups and stuff like that. So he's not just a shooter. Definitely more than that. He's a good enough defender. He's not terrific, but still, he's a good enough defender. He gives you full effort, all that kind of stuff. So, look, this should be Kevin Durant's spot. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I mean, maybe if Durant returns for the playoffs or something like that, then maybe Harris goes back to the bench, but we'll worry about that in whenever the playoffs start in April. So, right now, Joe Harris does have the starting job in all likelihood. I believe he played for Team USA this offseason, so I think they held him out the first preseason game, but he should be fine. I mean, the concern, of course, is last year's playoffs. He did not play well against the Sixers whatsoever. I mean, no, not a lot of players played well for the Nets anyway, aside from Karis LeVert. I mean, there were a lot of struggling Nets in that series, so I mean, you know, as long as he's hitting his threes in the playoffs next year, he'll be fine. But Joe Harris during the regular season was incredible, and we'll see if he can improve off of that. I mean, 47% from downtown is ridiculous. I mean, could he push 50% this year? I mean, I don't know. I highly doubt it, but it's going to be fun to watch. So I love Joe Harris. He's probably my favorite player on this team, and hopefully he keeps improving. I think this is the last year of his contract because I think we signed him last year for a 2-year deal. So this might be the last year of his contract, not positive, but hopefully we resign him after this season. So based off the graphic I'm going off of, the next guy behind Joe Harris is David Nwaba, who's on his fourth team in the last 4 years. I believe it's only 4 teams. Was with the Lakers in 2016, the Bulls in 2017, and the Cavaliers last season. I don't know much about the guy. I've seen him play before, but only when he played the Nets. I mean, I don't really watch many Cavs, Bulls, or Lakers games. I mean, sometimes the Lakers, but still, I mean, the guy's 26 years old, has a 7-foot wingspan. When I watched him play against that France team, I don't know when it was, the preseason a couple weeks ago, his defense is really good. I understand it wasn't against the best competition, but he's just a great on-ball defender, and that's what the Nets love about him. I mean, his offensive game is raw. We don't know what he is really offensively. He shot 32% from 3 last year, 34% the year before. Only shot 20% in 2016, so I guess his three-point shot keeps improving. So we'll see. I mean, he could be another 3-and-D type of guy. I don't think his ceiling as a shooter is that great, but if he can hit like 35% of threes, he'll be a useful player. He's the type of guy that if the Nets are getting destroyed by an opposing guard or, you know, a small forward, he can come out there and do his best on defense. I mean, I don't think he'll be, you know, one of the Nets' better players this year, but he's one of those important role players you need, and he could be important for this rotation. So we'll see what he does. I don't know how many minutes he'll get, especially when Wilson Chandler returns. I think Wilson Chandler still plays small forward, could be power forward as well, but Wilson Chandler does have that suspension for 25 games, I believe, so David Nwaba should get some minutes in the beginning of the season, and if he impresses the coaching staff, he'll establish his role, but if not, then he might get cut or might be on the end of the bench when Wilson Chandler returns, so we'll see how he does. I like his, you know, chances to be a very good defender. It all depends on what he does offensively. I mean, we know what he does defensively. It really depends on what he is on offense. So we will see what happens with him. And, you know, when Wilson Chandler comes back, who knows what will happen, but we'll worry about that when it happens. So now on to the power forward, the 4 spot, and this is a guy I'm actually very excited about this year, Taurean Prince, who was with the Hawks for the last 3 or 4 years. He's 25 years old. He was technically the throw-in of the Allen Crabbe trade, but he's more than a throw-in in my opinion. I mean, I believe the Nets gave up 2 first-round picks in that deal to get rid of Allen Crabbe's contract, but look, if Taurean Prince plays the way that I expect him to, and I'm sure the Nets expect him to, that could be worth it. I mean, giving away draft picks sucks, but honestly, Taurean Prince is still young, and his ceiling ceiling is still not reached yet. He still has room to grow into a better player. He looked like he was going to improve every year. I mean, he did miss some games last year with an ankle injury, but he played all 82 games in 2017 and looks like he can keep improving. I mean, his three-point shot in the preseason at least looks fantastic. The game I watched it completely, he was 6 of 8 from downtown, so that was great. His defensive rating in 2018, I understand defensive rating has its flaws, wasn't that great at 115.4. I mean, the lower the better with defensive rating, so that was one of the higher ones in the league. I believe the league leader in worst defensive rating was Colin Sexton of the Cavaliers at like 120, so he's not as bad as Sexton, but still, I mean, Taurean Prince, according to this defensive rating, needs to be a little better on defense, but as I said, the system has its flaws, so you can't go off of that completely. But offensively, I'm excited for him. I mean, we saw him in the preseason, hit a lot of three-pointers. He's another guy that I don't know if he could be a 3-and-D guy because his defense isn't there yet. It could be. He definitely has the potential for it. He's 6'7", 220. He has the kind of athleticism to be a good defender. It all depends about, can he do it or not? I have no idea, honestly. We'll see what happens in the season. But he has a chance to be a 40% or better three-point shooter. That would be fantastic, the type of guy that Kyrie Irving or Karis LeVert can kick the ball out to and hit these corner threes and stuff like that. So he could be a big asset for this team. And I'll admit, when we got him, I wasn't too excited. I mean, I've heard of Taurean Prince. I've watched him before, but he never, blew me away. But, when I looked into him more and stuff like that, I said, hey, this guy's still very young. He still has a lot to prove. He's an improved shooter every year, and I feel like he's a good fit for this team. I'm sure he worked with Kenny Atkinson back in 2016. I don't know, was Kenny Atkinson? No, I think, he was with the Hawks in 2016, I believe. So he did work with Taurean Prince for at least one season, so they are familiar with each other. And look, I'm sure they'll get the best out of him. So I'm excited for this guy, as long as he avoids the injuries. He had the ankle injury last year. I think it was a sprained ankle where he played 55 games. But as long as he's healthy, he'll be a starter, it looks like, starting at the 4, and hopefully he'll be fine. So I'm excited for Taurean Prince. I hope he proves me right, and hopefully he has a good season shooting the basketball and can improve defensively. Up next is a guy who came out of nowhere last year, Rodion Kurucs. He was drafted in the second round 2 years ago. I remember going to watch his highlights, and he just did not look like he was NBA ready. I liked the talent. He seemed like a talented kid, but, kind of like a Kevin Durant type of body, but just did not look NBA ready in my opinion. But boy, was I wrong. Came in, started 46 games. He wasn't perfect last year by any means. 8.5 points per game, 45% field goal percentage, 31.5% from 3. Look, he wasn't great, but his hustle and his energy made the difference for the Nets in a lot of games last year. That's why he was starting. The Nets had a hole at his position at small forwards. Amari Carroll, I believe, was injured at some points last year. Wasn't that great for the whole season as well. So Rodion Kurucs definitely filled in for that spot and did a great job while he was there. I mean, there was some points where, Rodion's kind of hit a rookie wall at one point where he wasn't playing well, but he had a stretch where he was one of the better players on this team, and that could continue. I mean, he definitely has room to grow. I'm not sold on him as a shooter yet. His offensive game is very raw. We'll see what he develops into. I'm honestly not sure. I mean, he could be like a Bojan Bogdanovic, a former Net. Like that type of player could be his offensive ceiling, but I think defensively he can be a lot better too. I mean, he had some good moments last year. Definitely had a lot of good energy and hustle plays, a lot of steals, a lot of breakaway dunks and stuff like that. So he's definitely good at anticipation and that kind of stuff, but can he improve with the on-ball defense? I think that's the question for him. So still 21 years old, a lot of room to grow. The one downside, of course, is the suspension for domestic abuse. I'm not sure how long he'll be out for. Could be 25-ish games. I mean, Wilson Chandler, who plays the same position basically, is already out for 25 games. So the Nets might be thin at that position, which is why the whole the Nets should sign Carmelo Anthony rumors started. And I do not want Carmelo Anthony, so please do not start saying that. But hopefully Rodion somehow avoids suspension, but if he is guilty, then you gotta serve the time. It is what it is. So hopefully he returns back in the middle of the season and is more energized than everybody else and can take the Nets and take the league by storm and have a breakout second year as well. So we'll see what he does. Not expecting much at the beginning of the year, obviously, and I don't think he'll be there, but it's not looking good for the suspension. But there's no news yet, so I tried to look into it. There's no new articles or anything like that, so we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure the news will break one day, but let's hope for the best on his possible suspension. Up next is one of the newest Nets signed for 4 years, $40 million at 31 years old, which some people did not like the contract, but I'm fine with it. After watching him in the preseason, he looks like he has a lot of balance and at least a few years left, so I'm excited for him. DeAndre Jordan, not sure if he's going to start at center, but I feel like he will. I mean, I don't know, I feel like the Nets are going to go with the more established veteran. I feel like right now DeAndre's a better player than Jared Allen, but of course that could change by the end of the season. Hopefully Jared Allen turns into something, a player that is a lot better than DeAndre Jordan. I hope that's the ceiling for him, so we'll see. But I feel like right now DeAndre Jordan is the better player, but I really don't know who's going to start. I feel like it doesn't matter because I think they'll have like even minutes throughout the season. I think both guys should play, around 20 minutes per night, and we'll see how it goes from there. So I think he's exactly the type of player the Nets need, and there's a lot of pick and roll in Kenny Atkinson's offense. They like to just, have the center on the top of the key and just, dish out or, hand off the ball to these guards and just run pick and rolls and stuff like that. I think he's in a perfect situation and on a perfect team right now for him. Last year it was a tale of two seasons in a way. So he started with the Mavericks, was having a nice year, averaged 11 points per game, 13 rebounds per game on the Mavericks, almost 14 rebounds per game. His defensive rating on Dallas was 107.5, which is really not that bad. But when he got to the Knicks, his defensive rating was terrible. I mean, I forget what it was, but it was awful. It seemed like when he got to the Knicks, he just did not care anymore. He knew the Knicks were terrible. He knew they weren't going to the playoffs. I'm sure the only thing DeAndre Jordan cared about was just being healthy for next season because he knew he wasn't going to be back with the Knicks. So, look, I mean, I don't really, look at that time on the Knicks. It was 19 games. He wasn't even starting. I think Mitchell Robinson was starting anyway, so it doesn't really matter in my mind. But when he was on the Mavericks for the first 50 games, he looked like a really good player, so I'm excited for him. His free throw percentage was always an issue for the first 8 years of his career, but recently, I mean, he shot 70.5% last year on free throws. That's really good. I mean, I'm fine with it. It's not perfect, it's not great, but look, for a guy who struggled as much as he did, who shot in the 40% at one time in his career, to shoot at 70% at the free throw line is great. So I'm fine with that. I hope he continues to shoot well at the line. That's definitely huge for a center. So look, I think he's a great fit for this team. I think, with the pick and rolls and the handoffs, he's a smart player, can make good passes, and I think he'll be a great fit for this offense. So I'm excited for him. He's a high character guy as well. The teammates are going to love him, all that kind of crap. So, look, is the contract perfect? No. I mean, if he starts breaking down this year and his athleticism is gone and stuff like that, it's not a good look. But look, I mean, based off the 3 games I've seen in the preseason so far, he looks fine. He looks like he has a lot of balance. 31's not that old for NBA standards. I mean, he looks like he has a lot left in the tank, so hopefully he does. And I think he'll be a really good player for us this year, so I'm excited for DeAndre Jordan. Up next is DeAndre's backup or the starter. I really don't know, but it's Jared Allen entering his 3rd year, still just 21 years old, which is crazy to believe. Is he going to improve this year? That's really the big thing. I mean, he should. He improved last year in some aspects. I mean, he was getting bullied by Joel Embiid in the playoffs last year, which was concerning. But you can tell based off just looking at him, he has put on some muscle, so I'm excited for that. But now the Nets have a center in DeAndre Jordan who is big, bulky, and can definitely take care of those bigger centers. So, I mean, the Nets had Ed Davis last year, but Ed Davis is not DeAndre Jordan. I'm sorry to say it, but I loved Ed Davis. He was one of my favorite players last year, but DeAndre Jordan is better. So the thing with Jared Allen is he's a great rim protector, but against these bigger, very physical centers, he does have some issues. So we'll see if he can fix that. I would love if he was like a spot-up shooter on offense, the type of guy that can just run on the baseline and maybe one day hit corner threes. That's a lot to ask for. He did make some last year, but I don't know if he's going to improve that much in the three-point category this year, where he'll be consistently shooting threes in the corner. But he does take them at times when the shot clock's down and he's just standing in the corner with the ball. So he says, I might as well shoot it. So hopefully one day he does develop that shot consistently, but I'm not sure if it'll happen yet. I know that part of the NBA is dead, but hopefully he gets like a face-up game at some point in his career, like Kevin Garnett used to, or guys like that, kind of like an Elton Brand type of guy. I mean, I'm not saying he's even close to Elton Brand, not even the same type of player, but you know what I mean, like the same face-up type of game where you can just, face a guy and put up like these 15-foot jumpers and add that aspect to his offense. I mean, it's very nice seeing him dunk the ball easily and stuff like that and catch alley-oops, but having him in an isolation type of role, that would be nice as well. So we'll see what kind of offensive game he develops into in his career. As I said, I mean, the only thing I worry about with him is the physical centers. Can he guard guys like that? I mean, the Nets got killed by Joel last year. They got killed last year by a lot of good centers. I mean, they played Anthony Davis at one point. They played Jokic at one point, and these guys were just going off against the Nets because Jared Allen could not contain them. So that's a big thing. But his rim protection is great. He blocks. He blocked all these superstars last year, whether it was Giannis or LeBron. Guys like that, just amazing NBA players. He was blocking all of them at the rim. So I'm excited for that. Hopefully, him putting on muscle can negate some of those issues with playing against bigger physical centers, and I hope he has a good year. So we'll see if he develops into a shooter. It might be a few more years down the line, but if he somehow develops into a consistent corner three shooter in his third year, that would be fantastic. So we'll see what happens with him, and I'm still not sure if it's him or DeAndre Jordan starting, but in my opinion, as I said, it really doesn't matter. So there are some other bench players I just want to go over briefly. So we have Theo Pinson, who's 23 years old, entering year 2 as an undrafted free agent. Spent like half the season in the G League, was putting up great numbers there. He had some alright moments in the NBA, but he was playing in garbage time, so you really can't go off of that. I think he played some good minutes at some points in the year, but for most part it was a garbage time, so you really can't go off of that. But last year in the G League, he was putting up some really good numbers. I forget what they are off the top of my head, but he was really good. I mean, looking at his stats there, doesn't really have a role right now, but if there's an injury in front of him, if Kyrie goes down, which I really hope does not happen, then of course he'll be Spencer Dinwiddie's backup at that point. So we'll see what happens with him, but not really a lot of expectations. He's obviously one of the best bench celebrators in the league, so at least we have that going for him. Next is on to Nicholas Claxton. So he was I don't know if he was a first rounder. I think he was a very early second rounder. I think he was picked actually the first pick of the second round. A very, very high ceiling for him. So I'm not sure if he's going to start in the G League or not. I feel like he will because the Nets have a lot of players at his position. They could put him at power forward because they will be thin there, but I'd rather see him in the G League, honestly. I mean, I know we say that a lot about all these Nets rookies, but they come in the NBA and have immediate impacts. I mean, we did not expect that for Jared Allen. We did not expect that for Rodion Kurucs, but these guys have immediate impacts. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with him, but Nick Claxton has a crazy high ceiling. I mean, as I said, Chris Bosh 2.0, I've heard that a lot, and it's definitely possible. He's a lefty like Chris Bosh is. I think he's more athletic than Chris Bosh is. I mean, he has such amazing defensive potential. I mean, his wingspan's ridiculous. He can move very well for his size, and I mean, his jump shot is a work in progress, but it's there. I mean, he has, in his college career, he was making threes at some point. I believe right here it says 28% from downtown, 30% for his career in college. So that's not great, but you could work on it. It's definitely improvable, if that's even a word. You can improve on it, I should say. So I'm very excited for him. I don't know how much he'll play this year. I think it might take an injury from DeAndre or Jared Allen in front of him, but we'll see what happens. But for this kid's future, I am very excited for him. On to Zana Musa, a guy I'm very excited for as well. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him because we saw last year Kurucs broke out. Musa did not get a lot of attention because he really didn't play much in the NBA. Had 9 games played, and just like Theo Pinson, only played in garbage time. But last year in the G League, he was putting up 19.5 points per game. He was shooting 35% from downtown. He's a really good shooter. I mean, I don't want to call him Gordon Hayward 2.0 because, he looks like Gordon Hayward in a way. But they have similar games, I would say. I mean, he could be like a JJ Redick type guy as well. I'm really not sure. I feel like he has some really good ball handling for a guy like that. But, he's just a guy who has another very high ceiling. I'm not sure what he can be exactly, but I don't know if the Nets have room for him. That's the problem. I feel like right now the Nets roster might be a little bit too good. But as I said, if Garrett Temple struggles, we might see Musa. So I mean, it depends. If Garrett Temple struggles out the gate and the Nets don't like what they see, or there's an injury to him or Karis LeVert, we might see a lot of Musa. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. His defense definitely needs some work, but offensively, I like his potential a lot. So now we go on to a guy I talked about a few times in this video, Wilson Chandler, 32 years old, suspended 25 games for the PEDs. He's played in New York before. He spent 4 seasons on the Knicks before being involved in the Carmelo Anthony trade. He does what he has to do. He makes 3-pointers. He doesn't really have the athleticism he used to. His defensive rating was 108.5, which is, pretty average, I would say. He can still shoot, though. I mean, that's really what matters at this point. He's a big guy, can still make the threes, so I'm not sure what his defensive upside is at this point, but we don't have to rely on him much because he's not going to be a starter. But plus, there's other guys that might take his role. And here's the other guy, Lance Thomas, a former Knick as well, played there for 5 seasons. He was the longest tenured Knick last year, I believe. He, used to be a really good defender back when his career started, but kind of fell off as his age got up there. I guess he lost his athleticism. Not much of an offensive threat, so I'm not really sure what to think about Lance Thomas. Lance Thomas actually went to my high school his first 2 years until he transferred, because no one stays at my high school because it's not that good for athletics, but that's just a fun fact. But I don't think he'll be that much of a contributor to this team. He might be the first 25 games, as I said, with Wilson Chandler out, but don't really expect much from Lance Thomas. But hey, maybe he does. It's a cool story. I mean, maybe, I think he's an undrafted free agent and stuff like that, so hopefully he does. And last but not least, Kevin Durant. I mean, how could I forget about Kevin Durant? 31 years old. He had a quote recently where he said, I wouldn't count on me to play this season or something like that. But until I'm told otherwise, part of me just wants to believe that Kevin Durant will be back at some point this year. I think the big thing for KD is, with the Nets at least, if KD is back and is healthy for the playoffs, that puts the Nets in finals contention. I feel like without KD, the Nets season is kind of capped in a way. I feel like, the Nets are a Eastern Conference Finals type team at best. I don't think the Nets can take down the Bucks without Kevin Durant, but I feel like if they had KD, the sky is the limit. I feel like they can make it out of the East if they had a healthy Kevin Durant. But right now, with the roster they have, I'm not sure. I hope I'm wrong, but that's really where I'm putting it at. So I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he plays at some point this year, but I really don't know. So as I put Emmanuel Sanders as well for my football fans out there. Emmanuel Sanders tore his Achilles in December and was back in August playing in preseason football games. So, I don't know how many months that is. I guess it's easy math, right? Yeah, 9 months. So, look, if he's back in 9 months like Emmanuel Sanders was, then look, we have Kevin Durant for the playoffs, but I don't think they want to push it with him. They have him for 4 years, so I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen with him. But until I'm told otherwise, I'm going to believe that he's going to play, and I'm going to be very excited about it. So hopefully we see Kevin Durant at some point this year. But look, if he's not ready, then don't push it. We saw what the Warriors did. We don't want that to happen again and completely ruin the guy's career. So I hope the Nets take it easy with him. But obviously, as a fan, I want to see him in the playoffs. That would be terrific, and it makes the Nets a finals contender in my opinion. So we will see what happens with that once April comes around. But that's it for the bench players and for the whole roster. Now let's get into the season prediction. Alright, so last year, if you watched my Nets video, I projected 36 wins for them. They went on to win 42 games, so hopefully I'm lowballing them once again. But this year I have them going 49-33, assuming Kevin Durant does not return for the regular season, which seems unlikely in the first place. That would be the 4th seed in my opinion. Could be the 3 seed as well. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, obviously, but would be good enough for the playoffs, of course. So last year they were 42-40. I just saw Bleacher Report's prediction for the Nets, and they had them at 43 wins, which seems very low in my opinion. The Nets roster seems a lot better than last year. I don't know why the Nets would only improve by 1 win. That seems like it's a low ball. So if I had to bet that, I would definitely take the over on 43. I like 49. I think the Nets won 49 games in their first season in Brooklyn, maybe the second year with the Paul Pierce KG year. But I feel like the Nets won 49 games one year. So as I said, with Kevin Durant, I think they're finals contenders. Without Kevin Durant, I see the Eastern Conference Finals as their ceiling. I hope I'm wrong about that, and hopefully KD comes back and we don't have to worry about it. But I feel like that's really the logical way to look about it. So look, maybe these guys improve so much and they don't really need Kevin Durant. Maybe Taurean Prince and Karis LeVert turns into a legit superstar, and Jared Allen turns into a star and stuff like that. Maybe we don't need Kevin Durant, but of course having him would be great. So I'm not counting on him. I do want him back, obviously, but as I said, you don't want to push it if you're the Nets, and I understand as a fan and as a logical person, if they don't want to bring him back this year and they don't feel he's ready, then don't do it. Don't ruin the guy's career. So look, I'm excited for the season anyway. It doesn't matter to me if they win the finals or not. I'm going to be excited. It's going to be fun basketball to watch. As a Nets fan, we've seen a lot of rough seasons for this decade in particular. But look, I think this is the first time as Nets fans since probably the KG and Pierce year, we at least have some finals expectations. There is a chance. The Nets weren't favorites to win the finals in the KG and Pierce year with Jason Kidd as head coach and all that. But there was a chance, if everything worked out perfectly. If Darren Williams returned to MVP form and Pierce and Garnett were still playing at a high level, there was a chance. Of course, it didn't happen. Brook Lopez broke his foot, all that kind of stuff. Darren Williams was out of shape, and so this season hopefully is different. There is a chance though. There is a path for the Nets to make the finals this year. I don't think it's out of possibility. I think it's possible, but it's just not likely. I feel like right now the Bucks have a better roster. Of course, you have to watch out for the Celtics. I don't know what to expect from the Raptors without Kawhi Leonard. I forget who else is good in the East right now. The East isn't that great, honestly. Obviously, the West right now is stacked, but I don't know who else to worry about in the East. I'm probably forgetting, the Sixers, of course. Yeah, so if Ben Simmons is shooting three-pointers like apparently he is now, that could be an issue, but of course the Sixers are an issue, and the Bucks. So, I mean, I really don't know what to believe. The Celtics, of course, you have to watch out for them. So, look, the East isn't great. The Nets should make the playoffs. Even if they sustain a couple of injuries, they should make the playoffs based off their talent and based off their coaching and all that kind of stuff. So I like their spot. I think they'll make the playoffs pretty easily this year. If they get to 49 wins, they should be in easily. So hopefully we get Kevin Durant, but you can't count on it. So that'll be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you made it to the end and you want me to do more Nets videos throughout the season, let me know. I have no idea what kind of views this video will get because obviously this is more of a New York Giants channel, not the Brooklyn Nets, but hopefully I have some Nets fans that tune into this, so we'll see what kind of comments and reactions we get to this. And, I'll talk to you guys next time, so thank you for watching.